Raining in light, trauma. Trauma, a fact of life. The word is uncomfortable. The word eludes to yesterday and maybe to a place in the dark. Maybe to a place of loneliness and fear. Trauma. We don't want to talk about it, but we kind of need to, so that we may be relieved of the weights of it. We've been at work building an army and of safe supports. It is time to rely on them. It is time to do that one thing that trauma strips away from us. It is time to trust. We must begin to trust our safety nets and to trust the process of healing. Trauma sometimes goes undefined, and because it can easily wipe out our senses at the time it occurs. Let's refresh the senses that we have by breathing with and through them. Let's visualize all that we like to see just in this moment. Let's smell all of the wonderful things we like to smell just in this moment. Let's touch our hearts and the hearts of others in this moment. Let's hear the sounds of the ocean, the sounds of the wind blowing through trees. Breathe. Deep breaths in, slow breaths out. Trauma can make breathing a challenge. Trauma can make closing our eyes difficult. At this time and any time you need it, breathe in any way that you need to. Breathe in any way that supports you, and if you prefer to maintain open eyes, do so. Remember, there is not a wrong way to meditate, and as long as we are focusing on the here and the now. Breathe. We are not yesterday. Breathe. We are this moment. Breathe. All is calm in this moment. We'll stay here for a little bit. Here, we're free from pain. We're free from any bonds with trauma. Breathe. We are free from anxiety. We're free from depression. We're free from stress. Breathe. 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 And when you're ready, gently open your eyes if they were closed. We're moving on. We're moving away. We're moving through. Trauma, both underused and overused. Trauma, a point in time that takes away so much time. Trauma is not supposed to be a life sentence. We are here in this moment and defined by so many factors. Only in this moment, if possible, let's not be defined by our trauma. Trauma, heavy, random, completely unfair, and usually unprovoked. Trauma, unthinkable, unquestionable, indescribable sometimes, and undeniably painful. Trauma doesn't only apply to experiences and occurrences in childhood. Trauma doesn't only apply to abuse. Trauma can occur at any age and will likely come and go throughout our life. Trauma is exposure to any incident or event that interrupts and adversely affects, impacts, or impedes our mental, our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual health. Trauma can be an argument. It can be a breakup. It can be scars left behind from a surgery. Trauma can be a failed test, a loss of a job, a loss of a home. Any interruption of our peace or the pursuit of it can be trauma. These things are traumatic. Feeling overwhelmed leaves us with a tendency to isolate. Sometimes there's a state of shock, a state of denial. All here are pieces of trauma. And then there's the exhaustion, the confusion, the sadness, the irritability. Trauma is so complex, but simply put, it is an emotional response to distress. We may all react differently to trauma, but the outcome is the same. Certain maladaptive behaviors occur, and we may not recognize them outside of ourselves because it becomes our personality, it becomes our character, it becomes our traits. It becomes our design. And long before you know it, it just becomes us. Here, we'll have to take a close look at ourselves, and just the same as when we discussed reflection. Has there been anything that has impacted our lives so much so that we feel stifled in one way or another? Trauma affects all classes, all colors of people. We may even be successful in many different areas, but there's that one area that we just can't succeed in, and it may be due to trauma. Trauma that heavily impacts our lives and makes us feel less than successful or makes us not be able to go that extra mile. A fact to note and consider is that maybe there are only very few people who have never experienced trauma, and this is a big maybe. Trauma can immediately leave us feeling helpless and may lead to us turning to things and those that are not healthy. Trauma, so much hurt from it that nothing can be better than attempting to numb ourselves, and not long after we stop feeling anything. Either everything is serious or nothing is serious at all. What we use to numb ourselves begins to hurt us, and sometimes that right person will tell us how we look or act. The wrong person will just stand by and watch. Trauma does add to our vulnerability. It adds to our fragility. It adds to mental health challenges. Post-traumatic stress disorder could be ours, and even without a medical diagnosis. PTSD is the difficulty we have with recovering from a traumatic event. Trauma can lead to panic attacks. It can lead to anxiety attacks. This is all the more reason to learn to breathe with intention and with purpose. We must learn to breathe through everything. In addition to breathing, we must practice mindfulness and healthy living skills. Remember, we're moving beyond coping skills. Some of the most important and difficult healthy life skills are establishing and maintaining boundaries. Establishing and maintaining boundaries, not just with others, but with ourselves. Most folks go immediately into relationships and other things with things and others. A challenge for us is to look at the relationship we hold with ourselves. Look at the boundaries that we are able to draw with ourselves or the lack thereof. Our life now starts with us. If we haven't already, this is the perfect time to begin. Let's prepare to lessen the impact of trauma. Let's learn about it. Let's research and explore it. Let's talk to trusted others. Let's talk to a professional if needed. Let's link up with support groups, with others who may have something to offer, and us in turn maybe have something to offer to them. Trauma, we cannot lead with it. We can no longer lead with trauma. We can't go from door to door and house to house, place to place, carrying it. Well, we can if we want to. We just might not get that far. We might have instant replays of yesterday. Let's walk through trauma. Let's walk into raining and light.